I need help, boss.
Stands up and says it louder. He goes, I have a really big penis.
We're the NSAA. We're never serious about anything except grip ball.
I have drifted an aircraft carrier.
What?
To an extent, but you'd be out there alone as fuck. There's no.
Just bumping into people by osmosis of dopeness, you know?
2, 1. We're gone.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Happy Hoodlums podcast. It's Kemper Woodruff. I got Zack Sampson, my powerful co-host. And today on the podcast, my friend, my brother, my client, my holding it down since day one filmmaker himself, Alex Mikula. He's also a journalist and the interviewer in the One-on-One with Alex Mikula series we help produce through Wonderful Entertainment. And he's here. We're going to chop it up. We're going to give you guys a little bit of insight into some projects that we may have brewing, you know, and
Absolutely.
get a background.
Thanks. That's like a great intro, first of all, and thank you for having me. Yeah, I wasn't sure how long it would be because since I kind of know you a little bit, I wasn't sure if it was just gonna be like, "Hey, this is Alex." So that was a good intro right there.
Well, thank you, man. You know, we got to keep everybody professional because they might not know you like I know you.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I
Glad to
mean?
be there.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess to start it off, we've been just kind of chopping it up on our own stuff, but we're going to go business first, okay?
Right.
Because you're a filmmaker and you're actually the first paying client that Wonderful Entertainment had. And so the way that you've interacted with us has helped really essentially sustain us to the point where we could create the Happy Hoodlums podcast, which, you know, we wanted to start a podcast for a long time. But great things take time, you know?
Absolutely. Yep.
So people might not know that one business couldn't exist without another, you know? So having you on is awesome. And we've already produced one thing for you. So how did One-on-One with Alex Mikula in that interview series come about?
Well, I mean, I knew both of you coming from school. First of all, kind of we didn't communicate or spend that much time in school, but I was thinking post college, like a few years, and I had worked on my own podcast series for a while, and I wanted to get back into producing and film and just doing interviews, human interest stories, and I didn't really want to pursue the podcast route again just at that time for me. So I thought filmmaking, doing docuseries, I think was a better fit for me. And I just had remembered the both of you guys from school, and out of all the people our class and our group, you guys kind of just stuck out the most to me. And I knew you guys did quality stuff, and you guys were professional and took it seriously. So for me, it was like, all right, I'm just going to reach out first to Kemper, kind of see what he's up to. I was hoping you were going to be working on something, which you were, and then just, the vibes that I feel like we got for the very first conversation we had about the things that we were wanting to do and working on. It just kind of snowballed into like, all right, let's figure out a way that we can make this happen and to start these projects that we've been wanting to do. Myself for these human interest stories, and then you were kind of talking about, vice versa. You had other projects that we could network and kind of work together in tandem, which I think a lot of the business is just piggybacking off the people and hoping that you guys can both bring your own talents to each other and to hopefully make some quality content. Right now, I think that's a lot of what the business is kind of developed to be,
Yeah. So I guess my question is, you have these human interest stories, but where'd your interest in humans come from?
Well, humans are very interesting. I've always liked psychology. When I first went to school, I actually got my minor in social psych, and I always just thought that human brain was interesting. And then I also came from Russia. I grew up in an orphanage until I was about 6, and a lot of that kind of developed or created gave me some background and maybe a different perspective as to how I viewed life and viewed people, relationships. So when I came over here, I kind of my parents had adopted me and came over and got me. And then when I came here to America, just being growing up and kind of in and being able to have a little bit of a different perspective on the United States and just coming like learning a second language and just maybe not the most traditional like early childhood, but then also I did have a very like normal upbringing from that point on. So I think I just kind of always had interest in kind of people and just that background. Yeah.
So, not to be political, but to contextualize this, what
Yeah.
was it kind of like for you um, growing up and some of the things that people might have done that confused you when you were young, like in the orphanage, because that might be a very um, unnatural setting for kids to grow up in, right?
Right.
And then versus once you got to America and what your life was like here.
Right.
Um, can you give
Yeah.
us a little insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, in the orphanage, you don't really know that life is that different. I guess I didn't know that there was, people had families, and
Mm.
so like my very first interaction with my parents, I thought they were going to rob me.
Whoa.
They were staying at an apartment in Russia, and they had just gotten me out of the orphanage, and they were trying to be respectful of these people's apartment. And they were like telling me to take my shoes off, and I thought since we didn't speak, they spoke very little Russian, and I just only spoke Russian. I
Yeah.
thought they were like asking me to take my shoes because they were gonna like steal my shoes, and I knew I had to go back to the orphanage. And if I didn't
Oh.
have my shoes, I was going to be in really big trouble. So like our very first like 10 minutes of like starting this whole like relationship and foundation was like literally a fight over my shoes. And then just coming to America in general, and not having that background of like what a family is. I mean, it takes a little bit of adjustment to kind of understand I guess when you're raised, from a baby to, young adulthood or to young adult or child, I guess, you just build that rapport, build that bond with your parents, right? Naturally.
Yeah.
And then, so trying to build it when you're like 5 or 6 is very different just because it's like, I never knew,
Yeah.
I didn't really have that trust or bond really until like 10 or 11 or 12. It was like much later. It took a long time to actually like build up that connection with them.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that kind of answered your question, but
No, that was
yeah,
perfect, bro. And thank you for being so honest. Cause like
yeah,
to us, like there's like thoughts that are gonna come to mind. One, when people hear Russian orphanage, I have to ask, did they beat you when you said like when I was gonna be in big trouble? Were they on your ass like that?
or a little bit, yes, yeah.
They
We
were.
had like the fat lady who would come up and like she had a belt, so that was like the beating would be like the
It was the
belt.
traditional kind of upbringing from back in the day. All right.
Yes,
So I
100%.
had to address that just for the people.
Yes,
Now,
yeah,
and I'm a product of getting your ass whooped. All right.
yeah.
So we're
That's
fuck what you heard. There's something to it, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
I don't want to advocate for that shit,
right,
but I guess
yeah,
we're looking at the byproduct of that
right.
generational upbringing.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Because when you're
I
wild,
can't say that my parents didn't do that, so I
yeah,
guess yeah.
exactly.
I personally feel like I learned a lot better without it, but yeah,
Hell yeah,
yeah, without the fear of that, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
But number two is like you were old enough to remember this interaction. It wasn't like something that someone came back and told you later, right?
No, I think my parents like because I remember quite a bit of like growing up in the orphanage, like the last few years, especially because I got like really sick there, and so I remember being really sick for a year or so,
How'd they
and then
treat you?
what's
Like,
that?
did they have good medical care, or what was it like
Oh,
home remedies?
not yeah, no, it was I got taken to the hospital, so I mean, I got better. I had hepatitis B, which I guess was fairly common, I guess, getting that. So
Yeah,
it went untreated for a while. So I just remember like having zero energy and just being I remember actually the highlight for me was like being taken out in an ambulance and I got so much attention, and I was like, oh, this freaking is amazing, even though I like had no energy and I couldn't enjoy it really. I
Whoa.
don't know what that says about me, or but that
No,
was
I
like,
think that's being human, you know?
yeah,
Like, that's a
yeah,
human experience. You experienced a form of fame almost, you know, or
right,
like importance.
yeah,
Uh, you know what I mean?
yeah.
At
I went from like not having no importance or really not being. I was
relevant.
really quiet in the orphanage, and very reserved. And so for me, it was like, oh wow, I actually had like eyes on me, and people were like, pretending to like care at least.
Yeah.
So and just so yeah, it was my first yeah, and I like liking that feeling, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah. I think that's a very human experience, you know?
yeah, hmm
And I think it's so interesting and really like beautiful when you can see the influence that life can have upon you and then what someone makes of themselves out of it, you know?
yeah,
Because
absolutely,
you basically took that whole paradigm and flipped it on its head by creating something that gives a platform that gives not only justice but relevance and um, a spotlight to people in their life, like
uh,
real life stories, and giving
yeah.
them that same feeling. So it's interesting that that would come full circle.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I never even looked at like that quite that in that way, and that's actually very insightful because I agree. Like that's definitely kind of full circle how that all came about was just and having empathy for people in their situations too, and also wanting to be able to shed light on. I think the media and especially nowadays, I think people are craving. They want to know more about different cultures, and even though we might be in a very divisive time right now in our lives, I
Hmm.
still think that people are craving and seeking out information about different groups and being way more open to understanding other people, their views. Mental illness has been a huge thing that's become way more widely accepted and even talked about. And so I think creating this is the time to create these stories because there's people definitely a demand, and I think that every single person has a story, and it's always everyone's unique. You never know where people come from, and that's the thing that I've always liked about interviews is you can start at one point thinking you have an idea of where you're going to go with it, and thinking you might know that person, and then you just have a moment. You don't have that many times in your life where you can actually sit down with someone for like 30-45 minutes and actually get this type of information from them. And that's what I love about like what we do, what you guys do. It's very beneficial, I think, too. Yeah,
Thank you.
that was a tangent. I don't know what that was. I don't know if I was answering your question just now, but
No, not only did you just answer a question, it's funny that you were like describing something that I was experiencing because, like I've sat and talked with you a bunch, but it's different when you're handling someone one on one, and because you need more discernment in the energy that you guys are exchanging in the so you can really tell the like authenticity. But I feel like when the cameras come on, like whatever you were, even if you try to be what you're not, people just see right through it, you know.
yes,
There's
right,
something that it's like it puts an emphasis on the stage and the set and the setting. So like when someone says something that's impactful to you, it's like boom, punctuated. Something inside of you, because it has your undivided attention, just shifts, you
right.
know?
I
And it's
agree.
weird because you're watching and reflecting on who you are while having this encounter simultaneously with someone else. You
Right.
know?
Yeah,
It's like you're conscious of your transformation as it's happening.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I like
Yeah.
that. That's yeah, 100%. And I feel like when you're having that conversation with people and you're seeing that transformation within yourself of like especially in terms of like I might have a list of questions and asking a certain questions, and obviously you're going to be feed off of what that how that person answers, and sometimes that transformation is happening live, like just not with the audience and with yourself as you kind of are peeling back the layers of someone's life or story. But yeah, that transformation I think is what is people are seeking for too, because I think a lot of people are very hurt in life and or struggle with trauma. And I think that being able to hear someone else's story is not just formative for me, but like just for the audience. I think so many people need that. Like being able to be relatable and hearing someone else's story that you can relate to is very impactful. I think really help transform them too.
Mm,
Viewer.
well said.
Yeah.
Yo, real quick before I even say anything back,
Yeah.
Zach, do you have anything that's come to mind? Because it's like tennis. He's hitting them at me like Kevin Federer, like pow, it's a hot top. I'm like, wow, I'll hit it right back.
Right.
So
Yeah.
interject real quick if you have anything before I just serve.
Serve it, dude. Like I've just been listening, taking it
All
in
right.
as usual.
Yep. Hey, look, also side note, people don't know that you can be baked and be this eloquent. You know what I mean? But look at this
That's
beautiful
true too.
we're having.
I mean, not me, but yes, yeah. You have a talent for that as well. Absolutely. I really believe that's a talent. Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
know. It's years of
If I did
experience.
that, I would be just not this. You wouldn't like this conversation at all. But you did very well, masterfully.
Sometimes I get nervous than a motherfucker, bro. I'm just on right now. You know what I mean? But no, real quick, what's part of your process? You know, like when you start looking at a story, because I've only ever encountered it once you've already because before this even started, I was telling Alex how professional he is. I said, I have never seen Alex show up without a pen, paper, and probably some like 3 or 4 pages already written before he even gets to your situation. So like, if you think about it like Terminator vision, where it's like you already assessed multiple situations in your head and you're like, I think it could be this or this, and you come prepared. So like,
absolutely,
it's just different when we're talking. So I want to know what you go through before you get to the meetings.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think is like the hardest. I appreciate you saying that. First of all, thank you, dude. And that's the one thing I always want to make sure. I think that if especially meeting someone that's going to be willing to share some really personal things or talk about a topic that's not very easy, I want to show them that professionalism and that I haven't just shown up and like not taking their story seriously. So I think if I show up and I'm like, and they see that I've already actively been thinking about it, I've been doing research about it, I've been looking at the story from their point of view. I think it puts them at ease almost, and it helps to. I mean, obviously, it puts me at ease too. I do it obviously selfishly for myself as well because I want to be prepared too, and I don't want to look dumb. Or maybe not selfishly, but I think that obviously the more prepared you are, the better that initial conversation is going to be with them, and building that initial rapport. I think that's one of the most important things with like my entire process is being able to understand the person I'm interviewing as best as possible without like actually having that conversation. So if it's a topic about like I did a podcast series about human trafficking, and I interviewed someone that was actively in the business, and I interviewed a former pimp, and each person you have to bring a very different obviously set of questions, but then also understanding their perspective of questions that important questions that there are questions that you think are going to be really important, but getting them to be able to actually talk about that can be very difficult. And them actually answering some really tough questions that they might not even be prepared to answer. Because I don't like to give people, a lot of people want their questions ahead of time. And I try to never do that because I think if you do that, it kind of preps them a little bit too much. And it's not like that authentic conversation, which I want to have with everyone.
Yeah.
But that also makes a lot of people really nervous, not being able to know like what questions are going to get asked. So I think having that as many different in that initial interview and process of getting that interview kind of set up, having as many different angles for the story, questions for the story. So that way, if they're like, absolutely, I'm not going to talk about that, and just shut you down right away, either you can kind of like open up and kind of ask why, what's, what I think it's really important to the story, or you can kind of just like shoot automatically down a different angle and be like, all right, if you don't want to talk about that, can we talk about this? And just always be kind of ready to offer them another alternative. I don't know. I think just being prepared just gives them, mostly for me, it's just mostly for them to feel more comfortable with me. It's kind of why I always do that.
You said one word that stood out, and that was beautifully said. I just gotta let you know. But it was respect, you know? And I feel like your whole work is like respect centric. And I
Yeah.
think that's what this world needs. And I'm gonna coin that, by the way. Respect centric is
Yeah.
my fucking word that I just came up with.
Oh, dang. All
I'm
right.
letting you know, and I've never heard anyone else
That's a
say
good
that.
shirt right there or something. I actually like, that's a really good shirt.
Because when you pull up with respect to somebody, in any state, especially when someone's been through something, because they might not actively be going through that ultimate dark point in their life outwardly. Like they might not look bummy and shit. They
Right.
might look pretty much like they got it together, but
Right.
that scar may still be an open wound.
Absolutely.
Really, if it's not dealt with. And like when you're respect centric in the way that you approach a situation, and just look at all the angles of like how this could be taken in, and it's like you might not need to see all of them. It gives you the ability to maneuver without your peripherals, so to speak, within the situation.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you happen to trigger something, people know, because they get the feeling, and you've already given them that level of status and rapport with you. You've
Right.
already set the bar of like, this is how I'm coming.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I also think it differs too from like male to female, as like, especially with like sex
Mm,
trafficking. It was like really personal stories, and for a female to talk to a guy about things like that might be very obviously even more difficult. And
yes.
uh, yeah, so that's why also it's like really important, I think, just to have that ability to show them the respect that I'm not judging them in any way. I think that that's the other thing I think in this industry. I mean, I just think I don't really judge anyone just because I think you shouldn't, but also just because, I mean, everyone's circumstances in life, they're dealt a hand, and either you're dealt a hand and you can process it and get above it, and you have the tools to do that, or you kind of learn through your life and kind of make the mistakes and then just keep getting better and better, or you're given a hand that you don't have the tools and you don't know how to move past a lot of uh, trauma or things that have happened that might really impact your life as a
Mhm.
as adult. And I think um, that I totally lost my train of thought.
You know what that boils down to? It boils
Yes.
down to this. Everything on this planet, in this universe, and beyond flourishes in praise.
Yes.
You praise, it will grow, you
Ab-
know? And conversely, whatever you give your attention to, you add more energy to it. Even if it's not traceable in terms of like maybe electromagnetic frequencies or whatever, like a beam of light or whatever, but
Right.
when you give your attention to something, you add momentum to it, right? It
Yeah.
begins to grow. And
Right.
so whether your attention is negative or positive, that's going to be what you're adding more to, you
I
know?
absolutely. I like that. Actually, you saying that is really smart. And it's so true. I think that's one thing that I think a lot of people are lacking is praise. But honestly, that is the one thing that I think people obviously lacking, but and that they need. And if you do have that, if you're able to give that to people, that they can flourish in so many opportunities that they wouldn't have been able to
The, the
be prior.
the trap is this, right? Because everything in life it has a duality to it, right? And
Right.
so if you're looking at the inverse of that relationship, it's like if you don't discipline someone, like you don't love that person. So if you only give praise, it's inauthentic at a certain point because they
Right.
can feel that you have this other thing stuffed behind your back. And that's why it's on you daily to have your own relationship with, like I say with God, whatever you call God, but your
Right.
own relationship. So that way, when you pause and you get right with yourself, that's what it really is. It's like you're checking in. God communicates to you through your spirit. So it's like you're checking in with yourself, you know?
Right.
And when you run that through your emotional filter, right, you can look in black and white at what actually happened and then how you felt about it, which are two totally different things. And they're both valid,
Right.
you know,
Absolutely.
whether one serves you or not, your opinion might not always serve you, although it may be familiar, right? But
Yeah.
when you learn to get around that by creating a space for yourself to first praise, and through praise it will also show you correction, and you won't see discipline as like you are bad because you did bad. Those are two different things. And once we get over shame and guilt, now we can have this experience in full presence, because I
Yeah.
don't have to hide half of me behind, like my shadow follows me wherever my body goes. That's the best
Right.
way I can put it. You get
Yeah.
the best of me, and you can bring out the worst of me depending on the way that we interact. But
Right.
it's all of me here. And when I don't have to hide this, I'm
Right.
so much less hostile and apprehensive in my analysis. Um, whether that's coming from me or from you, because I've already given it to myself. So you can't give it to me realer than me. I know what I did and why I did it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that that's important too, because it's like if you have your authentic self, because we do have those dual sides, right? Where we have our trauma or our past or whatever that
Hmm.
is impacting decisions and the way we speak to people, and then a word that they might say to us is going to make that side of us react in a way, even sometimes out of the blue, where they're like, "I'm not even following, or like why you said that or what you're doing." But if we are like confident, I think what you're saying, like within ourselves, and actually just knowing who we are as an individual and accepting all sides of that, is that what you're kind of saying, that the way we're going to treat other people is going to be way
Yeah.
more
And
just honest and
it's not only that it's more honest in its appraisal, because I've already looked at myself and judged myself. So
right?
like no one can judge me more intimately than that. I think that's what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
then when you bring that ability for me, knowing that I'm flawed, to come into this situation and not have to hide my flaws,
Right.
but be fully
Yeah.
present in a
Yeah.
way where it's like we don't have to be so judgmental just because I'm fucked up in this area that you're not fucked up.
Right.
Because you're
Right.
fucked up in a different area and you
Uh,
might not have done the shit, but you thought that dirty ass thought,
right. Yeah.
like
Absolutely. That's
you
where my
did it
point.
in your head.
Yeah. I think
And
that.
you wanted to do it and you didn't do it.
Right.
So are you really that much worse than someone that allowed themselves to have that experience, depending on the situation? Fuck
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I am saying that, like, when you look at it in theoreticals and you're weighing how you judge yourself, you judge it in these terms.
Right. Absolutely. And that's where I think my point was before too, in terms of like respect, is first of all, if you respect yourself, you're gonna be able to respect other people on that similar and same level. And I think that in order to have a real honest interview, or even and to be able to bring out the best in each of us during an interview, I think having that ability to respect the person for their past, what they've gone through, decisions they've made that maybe you don't agree with, but that's not your place to either say that, or you don't know the circumstances that people are coming from, um, or what they're doing to have to survive. So to come into any situation and to feel like you might have that advantage because you are just looking at them in a judgmental way, and a lot of people just do it without even putting any thought into it. They just naturally are just like, that's human nature, is to kind of judge and to always kind of, I think, boost your own ego and to over somebody else. And if you can see a weakness, you're going to kind of be able to pick that apart. But if you have mutual respect for everybody and understand that we're all not given fair hands in life. I think that's and that will help to obviously not judge people and to be more open to people from all
And
different walks, backgrounds.
like when you're a kid, if you watch a kid ain't fucking that interested in this experience that this other person's having if they're living in a good environment. They're just trying to immerse themselves in the environment. So you might be walking down the street, or like in front of the movie theater, and there's these flower boxes over here, and the kid jump up on the flower box and runs along the flower box while the parent's here. And the parent might be like, "Get your ass down," But
Yeah,
this kid is just trying to like experience and immerse themselves in a joyous way where they're not worried about what the fuck is happening over here or who's judging them or whatever. And
right.
I think judgment is a learned behavior. There's actually a really great Nipsey Hussle snippet that I heard on YouTube talking about this. But really, doubt is a learned behavior, you know?
Yeah,
And that was the essence of what
really.
he was talking about. And it's true. And so, as human beings, it's like, for instance, I gotta ask Zach, despite us having this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you being the third part of this whole conversation, even though you haven't necessarily had the chance to like chime in, right? Like this is an undeniably fire experience, right?
Yeah, it's interesting to listen to for sure.
And like even though you're having a different experience, like give me some of that just for viewership. What are your takes so far? Because this is cool. This is like the unbiased sideline right here, bro. Give us the synopsis on your thoughts. Fill us in.
um, well, I mean, the deepest thought that I had through this was just that nowadays people lack a lot of like self analysis. You guys had kind of touched on that, but didn't use that specific word.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
a lot of people don't look at why they do certain things. They just kind of do things. They don't look at like why they reacted a certain way to something and like genuinely process that within their mind and be like, oh, this is what caused me to do that. And it wasn't necessarily this person's action that made me do this. It was how it made me feel, and then I allowed myself to react the way I did. Or,
Yeah.
so that, and then the whole empathy part, right? Because once you start analyzing yourself like that in a really honest way, then you can start realizing that other people have other things going on in their head that isn't just cut and dry. Like, oh, this person did this, they were thinking this for sure. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, they were just reacting in a way that their mind made sense of it, kind of.
And you, bro, you teed this up so perfectly. Okay, check this out.
I wonder if you're going the same direction as me because I was like, he just said something too that made me think of something that was important. But go ahead, yeah, let's see.
Okay, you said reaction, and you were touching on one word specifically that Alex brought up, which was survival. And survival is a mode that is an actual visceral biological response to situations. And because we don't encounter the same levels and presentations of danger, right? So danger to us might be a social situation based on our neurological programming through being in a society where we're more tamed, where we show up to school each day. But what if I get bullied each day, right? And it ain't getting socked up, anymore, because that, you get in trouble for that. They get all on your ass. So now it's all psychological. So I never hit you, but I hit you. I hurt you, I
Yeah.
still hurt you. There's only one spot in your brain that really differentiates pain. It registers pain the same. So it's like it may not be a neurological response like getting hit is, but emotionally, you're still responding in a way that's painful. Like that's why your kidneys might stop functioning so well if you're in pain a lot or if you're fearful, and you can look at Chinese medicine and different things like that that'll give you the symptoms and where they reside within the organs and everything based on different emotions. But it's true because energy is a fluid thing like the ocean, right? So if the shoreline is contoured a certain way, that's the way that the ocean's going to move. Same thing in your body. You might be all fucked up in one area and it might be all blocked off. So your chi be going in all different places, but the
Yeah.
energy doesn't reside and get in where you really need it.
Yep. I agree with that.
Sorry, I took that one way out of left field.
Yes, I think I followed most of it though. Yeah.
I want to hear what you were thinking though. Run it.
I know. I was thinking that I think it was. I think Zach said something about like being reactionary, and I'm trying to remember what he said exactly. You said something about that, right, Zach? Like how your past trauma will make you, or is that something I said? You said something that was like, oh, that's such a good point right there.
Well,
And
I had said something like a lot of times we don't really think about like why we react a certain way,
yes,
whether it be through things like that some action made us feel a certain way rather
there we
than,
go. Thank you. That's exactly it. Yeah. So that is what I think is so, especially in prepping, and I think with like it actually interviewing people, is that you might ask a question that you think is just super not that big of a deal at all. It's funny what little question and how sensitive someone might be about a specific thing. I mean, speaking for myself, I think a lot of times I would feel like, and I'm not sure if it was because I came from like an orphanage, but I always thought I was maybe not good enough or less than. And so I always was trying to feel like, so if I ever felt that someone was kind of coming at me in a way that maybe was making me feel that way, maybe even just, or just talking down to me, and they might not be at all, but I would just react in such an aggressive way. And that might not have been what they were even remotely just what they were even trying to do. Because communication on its own can go either way. A lot of times, miscommunications is more common, I feel like, than like clear communication like this, because we don't have that a lot anymore. It's like either through text messages or emails, or everyone's super busy, so everyone's trying to just get as much information and in whatever platform, as quickly as possible. And I think miscommunication happens so quickly, and then I think people's own issues that they might not even be aware of, like why they might react strongly to something or what someone says,
Mm-hmm.
like Zach was saying.
For sure. If
Yeah,
you don't set that time aside for self-analysis to check in, and who are you checked by? This is something that took me a long time because I've always been fascinated in like what makes a good man, what makes a good human being, or a good woman, however you identify, whatever makes you good, right?
right. Yes.
Um, I believe that only God can lead you. Only your spirit can lead you. Like at a certain point, you realize that you kind of cherry pick from everybody, and the people that came before you are the foundation that your house is like,
Right.
initially going to be set up to build upon, right? And sometimes that foundation is fucked up, right?
Like we're talking about like parents, like your parents would be the
Yeah,
foundation, right? Like
yeah. Sometimes
or
you're
whoever
upgrading
raises you.
being your foundation, whatever that may be. You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
like sometimes it's fucked up and you need that foundation redone,
Yeah.
you know? And so when you're redoing your foundation and you're redefining yourself as you grow older, right? How do you check yourself? What's the filter that it comes through? It's like anyone that's ever played a musical instrument or just seen someone in their zone, they might be moving and doing the things. They might be singing, they might be playing the guitar, but they're getting those notes, those words, those whatevers from somewhere. It's almost like something is telling you a story,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So you're telling the story through you, and it's through your lexicon of your body, your language,
Yeah.
your expression, but it's otherworldly, it's not necessarily your own. If you're
Yeah.
that honest with yourself, if you've ever been in that mode, something just takes over and you're the instrument and something
Right.
is telling you.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the super young kids that like are just gifted at piano or singing or anything musical. It doesn't even have to be musical. They're incredible artists, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, you have had, they say like 100,000 hours or however many hours it takes you
Yeah.
to become an expert, right? And I'm like, these kids haven't even spent remote. They'll pick up a pen and or open their mouth, and it's like,
What I'm saying is sometimes that singer is someone that just had their heart broken. They've never sang in their life. They just had to let it out, right?
yeah,
What I'm saying is that life happens in such a way that it's like at a certain point you realize only you can, the way that you check yourself comes through this energy. If it
right,
aligns with that energy that I feel, whether I'm singing or whatever, when I'm in sync and no one's doing me like, and I can't do wrong, you know.
right,
Everyone has those moments, but
right,
some people, when they check in and create that space and they get their lane because they know their relationship, they're able to check themselves, and there's a discernment within yourself that I know this is where I'm supposed to be,
right,
and at a certain point, even if I haven't gotten that update on my phone, if the map hasn't said turn left in the directions of destiny or whatever, right?
right,
Even if I'm not at one of those turns, I can be cool on the in between because over time, I know that this energy comes back. It doesn't go away, even if I'm not tapped into it the whole time. And sometimes when I think I'm fucking up, boom, something happens and everything falls into place. And I go, oh, I just didn't see it come in that way.
right,
And now I can
yeah,
trust. I don't need
yeah,
to know how it happens. I know the essence of what's going on. And
right,
what in the end will transpire, but you can't get that until you have that buffer of time and that check in, you
right,
know? And
absolutely,
so to bring this kind of back to where we were coming from and why I kind of started being curious about this with you is I'm curious, what were those moments that stuck with you and jumped out to the point where, like, I know in order to create, you've had to work 60, 70-hour work weeks and stuff, like religiously, just to have the money in order to be able to fund your projects and live,
right,
right?
yeah.
And so, what were those things that were so poignant that made you come back? And has it happened yet? Like, what were some moments that were like that milestone moment? But do you feel that you've had that moment yet where it's like fully clicked and it's like, no, you put in all that work so you could get to this, and this is why it's happening.
Yeah, no, I think that for me, I mean, I think life is, it would be, I think a lot of us could, that who are doing this kind of creative outlet, whether like a podcast or any filming or any sort of like platform now that this is becoming way more common to do, right? Uh, most of us are still juggling either full time or part time work. I mean, you have to still, it doesn't pay unless you become like really successful. Uh, So the majority of people are having to work like these crazy hours. So I think that most of us are probably facing a similar thing where it's like, uh, I could be like, I could dedicate all this time away from work that I'm putting towards this filming and these projects, and like dedicate them to actually like myself or to, just to relaxing or whatever. Uh, and so I think it's so much harder to be able to push yourself to be like, why and tell these stories and to continue to film. And I think a lot of times in my life, I think that I know my goal of what I want to do, and I know like what drives me to do these stories and to be able to somehow make an impact that in what I do, and that always brings me back to either podcasting or filming, telling other people's stories, because that for me that gives me motivation within myself, and it gives me fulfillment,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it allows me to experience something very different than what maybe obviously my day-to-day life is. And at the end
Yeah.
of the day, like, I think if you have any passion in your life, you're going to find a way to do that, with no matter how many challenges and roadblocks you're facing. If you really are passionate, you'll always come back to what really makes you feel like yourself and your true self. And I think also for me, I always felt like I know I'm going to get to the where I want to be. I just don't, like most of us, I have no idea how that path plays out. And the way I wish I had done things, or, could have, should have, would have, are easy to do as you age and get older. But as long as I know that for me, I'm like, all right, I'm pursuing this. I'm continuing to make sure that this is a priority. I know that eventually, no matter what, that somehow I'm going to get to that point where I'm going to be fulfilled and be able to hopefully do it, you know, as a career, or do it on a broader scale, so I can actually invest more time into these type of stories too, projects.
Yes, sir. And you will. I'm
Yeah,
confident in
I
that,
hope so.
especially
Yeah,
with us helping, because this is
that's
like an
cool.
energetic storm right here, like, and
Absolutely.
that's what I try to tell people. Like, when you get us, when me and Zach pull up, you're not just getting us. Like, there's a
Right.
force of creativity that's gonna be born through this.
Well,
You know?
yeah, if you don't mind, I mean, we just talked about it a little bit earlier, before we started this, but um, you know, uh, drop you there. Sorry.
That's
Uh,
okay.
so, last week. So super. I was telling you how I was really down. I felt like, yeah, I just was hitting a roadblock after roadblock, and it was just nuts. Because then, like, literally that night, I you called me. We had a really great conversation. Talked for
Yeah.
like a hour or so, and it like completely just got me recharged. And it's crazy how it's like moments like that are like, if you're not being able to find it within yourself, you have somebody like that you're working with, like you guys, who are able to like uh push you and to give you some, because it's at the end of the day, we're all kind of facing similar challenges with no matter what platform we're going through. And
Yeah.
so it's just like having you like pick up the phone, call me, and give me that support, got me right back on the ball. So it's just like, no, you never know where that's going to come from, like, and that day it was from you calling me, and that got me back on track. So yeah, which I appreciate. Again, thank you for that.
It's all love, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta be reminded by your team that the torch is still lit. You know,
Right.
you might think it burned out because you've been running with this bitch for so long. You're like, can it really be going?
Yeah.
Sometimes you feel like it went out, but then your
Right.
homie comes and runs up on you and be like, psh, lights
Exactly.
you up
Right.
again, you know?
Yeah. 100%.
And that's what we're here to do, and like right now it's with Happy Hoodlums podcast. I want to say Dawn Talk. I want to go back to where
Oh,
it
I
began.
was like, I
This
thought
is
you
still
were
Dawn Talk to me,
name.
you
I
know
was
what I
like,
mean? We
yeah.
rebranded for y'all, but to me, this is still Dawn Talk. This is
Yeah.
Boss Talk. So, anyways, the podcast, like this is just phase one. I can't wait because that's why I tell people, I'm like, bro, as money increases, which it will in time, I'm gonna be wearing my shit. You know what
Right.
I mean? The stuff
Yeah.
that I created. Why? Because why not? Like that's cool. And I'm gonna collaborate with so many different people in so many different ways. And right now, I'm just the dude with the spotlight, just trying to look for people that I can just, just highlight them.
I
That's
think,
the God beam too.
yeah, right. Yeah.
It sounds
Well,
like a cat meme or something. Should have
I
it.
know that does sound like it. No, I think honestly though, that is what this whole industry, I think, truly is about. A lot of the time, if you think you can do it by yourself, I think you're just like fooling yourself, because at the end of the day, I feel like all my best projects and all of my best interviews have really come from like a team effort. I mean, you really, to try to pursue this on a level that we're trying to pursue it.
Mhm.
You have to have a team behind you, and to be willing to work with like all different types of people to get your project done, and to not keep it at like narrow focus, because any one individual can truly be that person that's going to like motivate you or introduce you to one person that's going to give you more content, or however you look at it. But that's definitely what I think this industry kind of builds right now too, is just that kind of partnership.
Yeah. So, like in the book Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about assembling a mastermind board of directors, people that are specialists in their field, and what they contribute is super um, powerful. And hopefully, you have a couple people that are very niche. You know what I mean? Like, and if you want to look at like hip hop, it's like Flavor Flav was like in strange ways super niche in that he was a hype man, but
Right.
the way that he came at it because of his personality was
Right.
so broad and so big. It was
Yeah.
like he was an X factor. So like you gotta find your Flavor Flav that's like your hype man for your crew, and then you have to find your Zack. That's like
100%.
the backbone. He's like the rebar and the concrete of this
Right.
shit. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, you don't want two Flavor Flavs.
Yeah.
You need
I like your
one Flavor
face
Flav is
fucking
enough.
explanation. Hell yeah.
Yeah. No, but that's exactly it. Like I feel like you need that, like those people that are going to bring out the best in you, and you need like that hype person. You need the person that is like that is like critical, logical, who's able to look it down and be like,
Mhm.
Zach, just sees it, does it, and then I think, and then like you hyping and getting everyone like involved in that. Like you need
Yeah.
all these people. Yeah, creating your own little like I like that though. Like creating your own board of like
Mhm.
directors because that is 100% it. Like you're gonna bring in the people that are gonna make your business successful at the end of
Yeah.
the day.
And for real, Napoleon Hill, there are so many people. I'm pretty sure Tony Robbins, there was Jay Prince from Rap a Lot. Like, bro, so many different people who before they blew up, they
Yeah,
read Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich is usually a book that most people read in prison, if you didn't know.
I did
It's a
not
book
know that.
that finds people in prison and it teaches you not only like universal law, but it
Right.
teaches you it in a practical sense with real applicable steps that you can take and
Huh.
real stories all the way back to like Dale Carnegie and like Henry Ford and shit, because
That's
this was
beautiful.
written in like the 30s by Napoleon Hill. And when he first wrote the first edition, they went through and edited it all out because it had too much like mysticism and stuff. They wouldn't publish it.
Oh
So you
dang.
go and find yourself the original edition, the original manuscript to Think and Grow Rich. You read that bitch, bro. By the time you're done, I
Yeah.
guarantee you shit's just gonna be popping off in your life.
That's good to know, dude. 'Cause I like to. I'm all about like reading things like that. Like I think that's one way to like find out like more about, obviously, to be able to do like more self reflection is to be able to give yourself tools to be able to do that. And I think like books like that at least help to make you either they give you both the tools and just the ability to kind of self reflect by like seeing how other people did it and kind of thinking, being able to put yourself in those shoes. So I always like reading those type of books
Yeah.
and yeah, getting that information.
Yo, what changed my mind about reading, other than actually reading, was I I heard someone say in an interview, have you ever wanted to talk to like the greatest leaders of all time? Like Michael Jordan, like Steve Jobs, anyone that you can think of, Marcus Aurelius, like you can go all the way back, right? And someone was like, yo, that's what a book is. It's a one-way conversation. If you've ever wanted to talk to that person, you want to pick their mind and know what's the most pertinent things to that makes them them, and
Yeah,
that gave them strength through their life and their pearls of wisdom, and it's written down. And
right.
if you get over the fact that the words are going to come to you, and at first it might be slow, like you might be thinking you're supposed to read too fast. No, you're supposed to digest it. That's why grammar exists, is so you can give emphasis on certain points.
Right.
And if you're trying to blaze through it, you miss those fine details.
Yeah.
And as you read it, you become it because you have to narrate it to yourself. And so there's a depth of focus that you don't get with any other medium other than reading.
Yeah.
You know?
I 100% also agree on that because I think that's why I think self help books are, and also just like people's self biographies are
Mm-hmm.
always be popular. And I think people are always wanting to know what is the secret, right? What got that person to where they want to be, especially if you're trying to mirror someone's life or achievements, right? Like I feel like the
Mm-hmm.
best way to do that is going to be to get into their brain. But usually the best way of doing that is like if they have a biography that they written themselves. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's usually I feel like the most truest side of like that person. I've always liked reading about like biographies because I always feel like, first of all, that gives you the best information about that person, and then also just that you're able to give yourself uh, in tools too through by understanding those people and
Mm-hmm.
learning like what they came back, their struggles, all that good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
and grammar's always good because it does help to emphasize the most important things. So yeah, I
Yeah.
agree on that one. Yeah, shout out
And
to
I'm someone who, when I write, like, that's why I fell in love with writing poetry. Is I I like grammar my way. I don't like grammar the way grammar is supposed to be all the time. I like using it differently, spicing it up. I just like the way words look on a page, and sometimes I just like the way something sounds, so I say it wrong, but it's right to me. It sounds good to me.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, and I know I said that we were gonna kind of touch on some of the topics that are to come, but I think it might be a little better if we keep those under wraps and just start to
Yeah.
sprinkle things in and give you something that you can give out to people that's not gonna give away, but keeps them checking in. So, um,
I think that's a good idea for
is
sure.
is there anything that you want to say before we kind of sign out and wind this one down?
Uh, I mean, just to honestly, for people to keep watching. I think that I'm creating content through with you guys is going to help to keep people interested in coming back. And I think that the stories that we've talked about doing in the future and kind of where we want to go and what kind of goals we have for each other, I think people would be interested in also being following along and kind of seeing how we unfold with each of those stories and projects that we kind of do in the future. So I'm excited. I appreciate you guys because you guys are helping that vision come to reality. So I appreciate that as well.
All
Of
right.
course, dude.
Well, in that case, go ahead and sprinkle out a couple like spitball topics that are on the top of your mind,
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
you thought project wise are going to be your
Yeah,
next kind of docu thing that you want to get on.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I think one of the biggest ones that we were just talking about recently was the homelessness issue. I think that's super relevant right now. I think it's really important that we get as much information out about that and also how it's impacting uh, such a large community of people. And I think that instead of kind of making it and wishing it away, maybe kind of understanding why it's actually happening is going to be beneficial. So I know that's one thing we've discussed that we're going to be kind of teaming up with a couple people on that.
Hmm.
And then another one that I'm super excited about. It's super early in the works. I actually just talked to the person, but talking to someone that is a financial advisor who is helping people of Latin American descent uh, gain more knowledge about investing and just how important that aspect of saving and investing is to your whole future. It really does give you one step up, and she's dedicating like a big portion of her career and her life to making sure that she's reaching out to these communities that actually need to hear that information. So I'm really excited to team up with her and get that information out to even maybe a broader audience as well. To keep and give her a little bit of a shout out and some support for
Oh
doing.
yeah,
Yeah,
100%. So these are a couple things that you guys can kind of look forward to. We're gonna try and put our heads together, figure out a good way to present it in a way that's short form but in depth and raw,
yeah,
and organic. So um,
yep.
expect some cool things coming out in the near future. And where can we follow you at? I know that we're gonna give you a drop down and put some links.
Yeah. No, mine is super egotistical. It's at the Alex Mikula. So
We
Sweet.
super
love it.
simple at the Alex Mikula for Instagram and yeah, Facebook. If people still use that, and then yeah, that's about it. Those
Nice.
two places would probably be the best place to find me. That's where I post most of my information.
All right.
Sounds good.
Well, this has
Appreciate it.
been, I believe, episode 22 of 2022. So that's got to be most auspicious.
Oh, dude, that's a good sign right there.
Yep. We're
Yeah,
signing out. Thank you, Alex. Until
appreciate
next
it, man. Yep, my pleasure. Everybody,
Have a good night,
later.
Alex.
see
Later,
ya.
guys.